Death Mage Chapter 131, The Spider-Son's Request to Kill Her.
Who is this guy? A monster tamed by one of the guys worshipping the gods on Vita's side.
The noble orc blurted out in agitation.
Leaving aside who is good or evil, I've now figured out who I need to defeat.
Said Vandalyu, understanding that the ones he needed to defeat first were indeed this noble orc and the orcs that were his subordinates. Keeping Princess Levia and the others hidden so as to not reveal his hand, but not wanting to fight on his own because everyone would worry, he had produced the enormous centipede monster Pete, and it seemed that he had successfully disturbed his enemies.
Jisha.
Pete hissed. Incidentally, Vandalyu was not simply attached to Pete's belly. To be more precise, Pete was protruding from his own back through the insect binding technique skill.
Kill him, Buji.
The noble orc commanded his orc subordinates with words of the orc language, mixed in his speech, but the orcs had also been shaken by the sight of Pete. And the orcs present here were those that had been gathered hastily. Their ability and loyalty were several levels below what could be called elite standards. They couldn't be blamed for backing away from the powerful-looking Pete. They were surrounding Pete with a semicircular formation, but there weren't any that were willing to attack without any hesitation. But Pete didn't hesitate as he charged at them.
GISHAH.
Pete's body, which was covered in a shiny, black carapace, passed between the bow-wielding orcs and Gizania, who was likely unable to move after having lost 4 of her legs, and lightning shot from his horns at the orcs. Saliva dripped from Pete's mouth at the delicious smell of burning flesh. However, it seemed that the orcs' fighting instincts had been ignited after their allies were attacked. One by one, they roared and charged at Pete, raising their heavy weapons. However, the defensive power of Pete's carapace in its normal state was greater than knights wearing full suits of armor. And he was currently using stone form, a martial skill of the armor technique skill, so the orcs' poor axe technique and club technique skills couldn't even scratch him. In fact, their attacks only caused their own ends due to the electricity flowing from his horns.
Buji.
The noble orc cheered as he saw a crimson fluid gushing from Pete. The crimson fluid flowing from Pete was not blood, but Kuhul, who was now a deep blood slime emerging from Vandalyu. Kuhul said as it attacked the nearby orcs. It was complaining, as it seemed to have been electrically shocked by Pete.
Jisha.
Buji.
Watching an orc be dissolved alive and absorbed by Kuhul as he let out a dying scream, the noble orc realized that his subordinates could not win against these enemies, no matter how much the numbers were in their favor. So he raised his trusty greatsword and joined the battle. The noble orc was indeed of a superior race. His agility far surpassed those of his subordinate orcs.
Buji.
He avoided the part of Kuhul's body that had been extended like a tentacle, and then released a swordsmanship martial skill superior to triple thrust 100 furious thrusts. With the sound of a rock drill digging into a boulder, most of the noble orc's thrusts were deflected after inflicting shallow scratches to Pete's carapace. However, some of the thrusts slipped through the gaps in Pete's carapace and successfully dug into his flesh.
GISHAH.
Pete let out a roar that was more out of anger than pain. However, the noble orc seemed to think that he could win after seeing the damage inflicted. He pulled his sword back and tried to release another martial skill. However, what appeared to be tree branches entwined themselves around his sword.
Buji.
Those were the branches of Eisen, which Vandalyu had extended using plant binding technique. They were powerful despite how thin they appeared to be, and they would not release their grip over the noble orc's greatsword.
GISHAH.
Not letting this opportunity pass by, Pete twisted his body around and pierced the noble orc with his horns.
Buji.
With the electricity flowing from the horns piercing his body, the noble orc let out a dying scream. I suppose this is how it is. Vandelyu thought as he received a slight electrical shock from being caught up in the attack as well. This noble orc is probably about as strong as Bugogan. Appraisal tells me that he's a rank 7 noble orc leader like Bugogan was, too. The noble orc skill with swordsmanship might have been inferior to Bugogan's, but his equipment other than the greatsword seemed to be superior. They were likely on equal grounds. The Devil's Nest in the forest in the Mergshield Nation, homeland of Zadyrus and the other ghouls, a second homeland to Vandelyu. The noble orc Bugogan had ruled a pack of 300 orcs in the center of that Devil's Nest. Vandelyu felt a little surprised upon learning that Pete had been able to defeat a similar enemy, while receiving only a light wound in return. When Vandelyu had fought Bugogan, he had tried all of the methods he could think of, but they hadn't worked. He had felt in danger, thinking that his barrier might be broken. Bugogan had been a powerful enemy that Vandelyu had finally managed to defeat after receiving a deep wound, using a plan that involved him risking his life. A noble orc of the same strength as him was now convulsing on the ground, emitting a delicious smell. Even though Vandelyu himself had done almost nothing at all.
I suppose it means we've become stronger.
He said, but if he thought about it, this was the natural outcome. Over 6 years had passed since the battle against Bugogan. During that time, Vandelyu had acquired jobs, and his strengthened follower skill had transformed into the superior skill, Guidance, Demon Path. There was nothing abnormal about having defeated a noble orc as powerful as Bugogan with Pete, Kuhel, and Eisen on his side.
Bujue, Hago Budgiaula.
And hadn't Vandelyu planned to have a yakiniku buffet at the Noble Orc Empire before? I suppose it's because he was the first enemy to ever inflict a serious wound on me in battle. He was a powerful being in my mind. Vandelyu was satisfied with this analysis of his own unrest. Incidentally, while he was doing this, the subordinate orcs had attempted to run after seeing their noble orc commander being killed, but they had been sent flying by Pete sweeping the lower half of his body sideways, had their necks broken after being grabbed by Eisen's branches, or been enveloped by Kuhel. Their skills were lacking and their coordination was lacking as well, so they were nothing but large-sized small fry. Watching this scene unfold, Gizania let out a sigh of both relief and defeat as she smiled.
With this, all of Princess Cornelia's pursuers have been defeated. Princess, please become happy with Prince Budorian. Great Vita, Zanelpadna, evil god of carapaces and compound eyes, please protect everyone.
She prayed briefly with her eyes closed, and then she thrust her greatsword into the ground and let go of the handle. As all of the orcs stopped moving, and Vandelyu finished his self-analysis, Pete faced Gizania once more. Vandelyu, who was attached to his belly, made eye contact with her.
You don't seem to be in good condition. First, your wounds need to be treated.
Though this may be a coincidence, I thank you for the reinforcements, great Centipede Dono. I suppose this, too, was the judgment of my guardian god, Zanelpadna.
What a polite person, Vandelyu thought as he heard Gizania's words of gratitude, despite having been interrupted. But even if her wounds aren't fatal, they're quite serious, so I want her to hurry up and let me treat them.
Not at all, I simply did what any person would do.
As thanks, I should at least allow you to devour me and gain experience points. I do not know if you understand my words, but come, end it in one instant.
Gizania squeezed her eyes shut.
Play.
Vandelyu was very bewildered, not understanding why he was being told to kill her. And then he suddenly realized.
Could it be that you think that I'm a part of Pete's?
He asked as he separated himself from Pete's abdomen and stood on the ground.
Why you're not?
It's no good.
Buraroo.
Jisha.
Kuhel and Eisen were scolding Pete, whose electricity had electrocuted them during the battle against the orcs. Meanwhile, Gizania was receiving treatment from Vandelyu nearby.
I am terribly sorry. I was certain that you were an organ of a monster like a manticore that spoke in a voice similar to that of humans to bait them into a trap.
She said. It seemed that she had mistaken Vandelyu for something like the lure of an anglerfish.
Not at all, I appeared in a form that could cause that misunderstanding, so please don't worry about it.
Said Vandalyu, focusing on other things, realizing that it couldn't be helped that Gizania thought that. He had used spirit form transformation to fuse with Gizania, to apply his rapid healing skill to her, while using blood potion to heal her as well.
I've found the third leg. One more. We'll find it even if we have to split the grassroots apart. I found it, Dana.
Vandalyu had created clones of himself with out-of-body experience to find and collect the severed legs of the right side of Gizania's body with Kimberly. He used the surgery skill to reattach them. He extended his tongue to release drugs and disinfect the wounds, and then wrapped the legs at the point of reattachment with bandages made of thread.
By the way, is the pain bearable?
Vandalyu asked.
Yes, it seems that there are no problems. Thanks to your magic, it simply feels a little itchy. But to think that my severed legs could be reattached, how long will it take before I can move them?
Gizania asked, looking happily at her right legs that had been reattached by the thread that Vandalyu had produced from his mouth.
I don't know for sure.
Vandalyu replied as he continued wrapping her legs in thread.
This is my first time treating an arachne person, but if it's just small movements, I suppose it will be several hours to half a day.
That's enough.
Gizania said.
Normally, they wouldn't regrow to their original length until I went through 5 yearly moltings.
It seemed that arachne molted once a year, and severed legs would regrow gradually as they did.
It is not only my legs. In the state that I was in, if I were to survive and return to my nation on my own, I would have lost my arm.
Gizania continued. Her arm that had been broken in a horrible fashion had been completely healed, and she was able to move it normally. The upper body halves of Arachne, which resembled those of human women, didn't molt, so her 2 arms would never regrow if severed, unlike her 8 legs. And for Gizania, losing her arm, which was necessary to swing her sword, would be equivalent to death. Of course, Vandalyu was happy that her arm had healed as well.
I'm glad to hear that.
He said,
It would be sad to lose an arm as beautiful as yours.
Gizania's arms had powerful muscles for wielding her greatsword. All muscles other than those of enemies were beautiful. Losing them would be an unbearable loss.
Beautiful, is it?
Gizania asked.
Yes.
I see. I am not so sure, as nobody has said that other than my mother, but I'm happy.
Gizania didn't look entirely convinced. Vandalyu decided that he'd have her make poses for him later. And he thought that the rest of Gizania was beautiful as well. It was true that normal people might be afraid of the spider-like lower body that was the size of a 2-ton truck, with fluffy-looking, furry, tarantula-like legs protruding from it. Her upper half resembled a human woman's, but when she stood upright, the top of her head was over 3 meters above the ground. On top of that, she had a large build, her body clearly being one of a well-trained warrior. However, for Vandalyu, who was friendly with the giant centipede Pete and cemetery bees, she was not someone to feel fear or disgust towards. In fact, even outside of her muscles, Vandalyu thought about how he wanted to try touching the fluffy fur on her lower body, about how the compound eyes on her forehead were like beautiful gems, about how her white skin was beautiful, and about how her front 2 legs resembled a human's until halfway down. Ah, come to think of it, she has 8 legs, will Privel be angry? No, I'm just gathering information and happen to save someone in the process, so it's fine. Tentacles and the legs of an arthropod were quite different in appearance, but their number was the same.
I will thank you once more. I am Gizania. I am a samurai of the Arachne race, and I wish for you to tell me who you are. I know that this is not how I should behave towards my savior, but...
Vandalyu was the one who had saved Gizania's life, and for some reason she felt some charisma from him, the demon path enticement and guidance, demon path skills, as well as the effects of the insect user job, but Vandalyu wasn't someone she could not feel curious about.
It's all right.
Vandalyu said.
Kimberly, while I explain things to her, please bring everyone over from the Notchin fort.
Fort, could it be that you came from that fort of bone?
Gizania exclaimed.
I'll include that in my explanation.
Dana, could I take my time to bring them here? About 30 minutes or maybe an hour.
Don't worry about that and bring them here quickly.
Vandalyu said.
Yeah.
Vandalyu excluded the information about the reincarnated individuals, but explained to Gizania about the current Talishime and the reason that he and his companions had crossed the marshlands to come to this place.
The fall and resurrection of the Titan nation, travel to and from the outside of the mountain range being possible, immigrants, I would never have dreamed that things had become like this beyond the marshlands.
She said.
I feel the same way.
Vandalyu said, having heard from Gizania what was happening south of the marshlands. Eleonora, Vigero, and the others had regrouped with them around this time, and they were greatly surprised as well. 100,000 years ago, the goddess Vita was defeated as a result of the battle between her and Alda, and the Arachne and noble orcs that had fled with her and her gods survived by forming groups encompassing their entire races in the land south of the marshlands. The goddess Vita fell into slumber, and the surviving pure-breed vampires became watchmen to protect the place where she rested, while the gods of every race, including the Arachne, needed to fall into a deep slumber for tens of thousands of years to regain the power they had lost due to their wounds. And the remaining Arachne and noble orcs endured the dawn of a new era by helping each other. As they had been allies who had fought together under Vita, even though their lifespans and ways of living were different, they helped each other, and the first few tens of thousands of years went well. It seemed that the fact that the two races preferred different environments to inhabit, like the lizard men and the titans, worked to their advantage. However, several tens of thousands of years passed. The villages of each race grew in population and development, and the gods began to awaken, beginning with those with the shallowest wounds and greatest power, putting an end to the new age. And with things becoming easier, conflicts of interest began arising between the two races, and arguments began occurring. These didn't develop into war, but this was only because the gods, including Zanelpadna, the evil god of carapaces and compound eyes, sent divine messages to mediate peace whenever signs of conflict began to occur. But soon enough, war between the races that served Vita broke out. At that time, a wise emperor appeared in history.
The one who suppressed the war and brought peace to the southern region of the continent was the noble orc archking, Emperor Buji.
Gizanir said, Emperor Buji was the most powerful being existing at the time, other than the pure-breed vampires who were slumbering with Vita. If he had wanted to, he could have used military might to create an empire with the noble orcs standing at the top. However, Emperor Buji did not do this. He solved each race's problems through discussion. We are not enemies. Every one of us are brothers and sisters, are we not? Let us value peace together and prepare for the battle against the tyrannical god Alda and his hounds, who will come for us one day. These were his words that had been recorded in history. In other words, he had created unity within by making an enemy of those on the outside. The truth was that the tyrannical god he had mentioned, Alda, the god of law and fate, was indeed an enemy. So, to be more accurate, he had reminded those within that there was an enemy on the outside. And then Emperor Buji created a republic with the noble orc empire at its center, where each race cooperated and helped each other. In the end, the noble orcs were in the position of leadership, but this was the natural course of events, as the noble orcs possessed the greatest fighting strength among every race. And that republicanism had functioned well until several months ago. That was because even after Emperor Buji's death, the successive generations of emperors had been wise and impartial, devoting themselves to maintaining the peace. However, the second son of the late emperor, Prince Bujitas, had felt discontent with this.
I do not know what he is thinking.
Gizanir said,
But when the late Emperor Fugafusama passed away, Bujitas acquired the divine protection of a god I had never heard of. A god named Ravivifard instigated a coup d'etat and drove away Prince Budarian, who was supposed to become the next emperor, as well as his loyal retainers.
Prince Budarian, who had managed to escape despite being defeated, was in hiding now, relying on the Arachne race where his fiancée, Princess Cornelia, was. Having taken over the empire, Bujitas had erased records of his older brother and destroyed the republic created by Emperor Buji, starting a war to create a dictatorship that worshipped the unknown evil god, Ravivifard. The Arachne race was fighting against the Empire, along with the other races that supported Prince Budarian, but the situation was grim. That was when the Arachne race had received reports that a fort had suddenly appeared without warning on the outskirts of the marshlands. Having remembered the existence of the lizardmen race, whom they had apparently forgotten about completely due to lack of interaction with them, the Arachne race had dispatched a group of individuals with Princess Cornelia at its center to form an alliance with the lizardmen to change the tides of war.
Wait a minute, why would you place the princess at the center of the mission? She's an important person, isn't she?
Eleonora asked, interrupting.
We had no choice.
Gizania replied.
The princess possesses a unique skill called thread telepathy. It is a skill that creates mutual understanding with those connected to her by threads that she creates, and the plan was to use that to negotiate with the lizard men.
The skill's name sounds like string phone, doesn't it?
Said Vandalu. TLN, thread telepathy, is Chinese letter / Ito Nenwa. String phone is Chinese letter / Ito Denwa, which refers to a telephone made from 2 cans and a piece of string.
But during our mission, the group, including myself, was attacked by Bujitas' subordinates. In order to allow the princess to escape, I applied upon myself the secret medicine passed down among our tribe that forcibly induces arousal in orcs, drawing them all the way here. And then, when my life was in danger, I was saved by Vandaludono. I will never forget this for the rest of my life. I will definitely repay the favor one day.
Gizania said, lowering her head.
I said this before, but I just did what I should do as a person and as the holy son of Vita. Please don't worry about it.
Vandalu said. Though he said this, he actually expected a lot from her repayment of this favor. Things look like they'll turn out bigger than I expected, and if I have her mediate things with the Arachne race, it seems that I'll be able to talk to Prince Budarian's side as well. I'm glad I obeyed my instincts, Vandalu thought. Now that he thought about it, that uneasiness that he had felt earlier might have been some hidden effect of the Holy Son of Vita title.
But insectoid monsters, undead, ghouls, and vampires, and orcs that I have never seen before, and they all seem to be several steps above me in strength.
Said Gizania, having sensed the strength of Eleonora, Vigero, and the Orcuses.
A Dampier who leads such beings, how tremendous the Shrine Maiden of Vita is.
TLN, Shrine Maiden is Chinese letter. Holy Son is Chinese letter. Both are pronounced Miko. Vandalu felt an uncomfortable feeling.
Fugo King is amazing. By the way, I'm starting to get turned on.
Beautiful.
Deodorization.
Before he could figure out what that uncomfortable feeling was, Vandalu realized that Gorba and the other Orcuses were breathing wildly and looking at Gizania with dangerous eyes, so the feeling went away.
My apologies. It seems that the odor of the secret medicine still lingered on my body.
Gizania said. It seemed that the secret medicine that forcibly stimulated arousal in orcs was also effective on Orcuses.
Bufa, I've calmed down. I'm a wise man now.
Said Gorba, turning his calm gaze to a faraway place.
By the way, why hasn't your god appeared yet when you're in such trouble?
Asked Orbia from next to Gorba.
He came out to mediate peace several times tens of thousands of years ago, didn't he?
This question completely distracted Vandalu from his uncomfortable feeling.
I do not know.
Said Gizania.
Perhaps there is a reason, or perhaps Ravivifard has done something, or perhaps he has some deep thoughts that I cannot hope to understand.
That might be right, but still a wise noble orc emperor.
Bastia murmured.
Is it surprising? For us, it is not surprising at all.
Said Gizania.
Rather than surprising, it is beyond our imagination completely.
Said Zadiris.
That's surprising as well, but I heard that the noble orc was speaking human words. Is that true?
Bastia asked.
As far as I can remember, Bugogan and his sons didn't speak a word.
Said Vigero.
About Bugogan, I remember hearing about a noble orc criminal who was exiled over 10 years ago. I know why that is.
Gizania said. It seemed that speaking the human language was a requirement to become the head of a family, in the noble orc empire. However, with his body physically being unable to pronounce human words, a certain noble orc had pretended to speak human language using a magic item that he had created in secret in order to become the head of his family. He had apparently been exiled for the crime of killing a noble orc of a rival family who had learned of his secret. It was likely that this noble orc had been Bugogen. It seemed that no other noble orcs had been sentenced to exile for some time, too.
I suppose it can be said that he was defeated in a power struggle,
said Vandalyu. The story was slightly different from what he had heard from the spirit of Bugogen himself, but it was within an acceptable margin of error.
By the way, I would like to move to regroup with Princess Cornelia after you've had some rest.
Vandalyu said.
Yes, but chasing after them will likely be difficult. Around half a day has passed since I became bait and ran all the way here,
said Gizania.
I'm not sure whether I should praise Arachne for their stamina or be exasperated at the sexual desire of orcs.
If Princess Cornelia had returned straight back to the Arachne village, that difference would be more than a day's worth. Vandalyu would be able to chase after her if he flew, but he didn't really want to do this in a devil's nest that he was visiting for the first time.
I drew all of the orcs in the nearby area to myself with the secret medicine, so the princess and the others should be safe. That noble orc seemed to have gathered those subordinates in a hurry, so there are unlikely to be any more pursuers,
Gizanir said. And so, Vandalyu and his companions decided to pursue Princess Cornelia and her followers without straining themselves. Name Pete. Rank 7. Race Black 100 Lightning Centipede. Level 45. Passive skills. Hunger Resistance, Level 2. Self-enhancement, following, Level 5, Level UP. Venom Secretion Neurotoxin, Jaws, Level 6, Level UP. Wind Attribute Resistance, Level 4, Level UP. Enhanced Flesh Exoskeleton Horns, Level 6, Level UP. Superhuman Strength, Level 5, Level UP. Active Skills. Silent Steps, Level 1. Charge, Level 6, Level UP. Surpass Limits, Level 7, Level UP. Armor Technique, Level 3, Level UP. Lightning, Level 7, Level UP. Unique Skills. Dragon Devourer, Level 2, Level UP. Name Kuhla. Rank 6. Race Deep Blood Slime. Level 61. Passive Skills. Blunt Damage Resistance, Level 7, Level UP. Hunger Resistance, Level 2. Predator's Restoration, Level 6, Level UP. Body Form Manipulation, Level 4, Level UP. Venom Secretion, Level 6, Level UP. Magic Resistance, Level 1 New. Superhuman Strength, Level 1 New. Active Skills. Silent Steps, Level 4. Bloodworks, Level 3, Level UP. Surpass Limits, Level 3, Level UP. Grow, Level 2, Level UP. Unarmed Fighting Technique, Level 1's New.